G'day guys, it's Ross here up on the roof on what is going to be a stinker of a day. It's going to be 44 degrees today, or about 108, 109 in the old money. Now I'm here in front of my evaporative air conditioning system, and I have done some videos on this recently about various repairs, and I've done a walkthrough of how the system works. I'll link that to the end of this video. What I want to go through today are the top 5 mistakes, and look, I've even got it written down so that I can remember them. The top 5 mistakes people make when using their systems. So what I'll do, I'll go through the top 5, but I'll very quickly go through the operation of one of these systems first. So in case you haven't used one, you understand the basic operations, and if you want more information, go to the long form video on that one. Now on 4 sides of your system, you've got a plastic cover, which lifts out quite easily. And I've already taken 2 of them out. We'll take this one out as well, and I'll pop it up on top. But before I do so, I'll just point out that there is a cellulose pad attached to the inside of each of these 4 covers. And that's important. Now the other covers which are over there in this cover all have a cellulose pad, and it's very, very important. It's one of the main components of this system. Now in essence, how these work is very simple. Down near my left knee here, I've got a water delivery system. I've got a tap and a solenoid. I'll turn the system on, water will flood up into the sump via a float valve. Then the pump on the other side will prime, it'll push water up into the top, and it'll go all the way along here and drop down onto those cellulose pads, saturating them. Normally, the water drains when the system is finished working. I've actually got a problem with my dump valve at the moment, so I've actually stopped that happening. So this still has water in it, and therefore it operates very, very quickly. So let's just turn it on, and I'll show you the operation of that curtain of water. So there you go, it's on now. That's a solenoid opening. No water's going to come up because it's already full. Pump on the other side is priming up, and there's our water delivery. So you can see it falls as a curtain, and it falls on all 4 sides. So pretty straightforward. In another few seconds, the motor would have started up, and it draws air through those pads, and it takes the dry air, passes it through a wet pad, cooling it by between 8 and 15 degrees Celsius. Depends on the humidity of the air and the heat and all that sort of stuff. Pumps it into the house, and there's your cooling. Pretty straightforward. Now I like these systems because they're a component-based system that's easy to work on. About 6 or 7 years ago, I replaced the pads. Last year I opened up the box here with the PCB is, which is a printed control board, and in there there's a capacitor. I replaced that, got the system working. This year the motor died. I've replaced the motor. It is 27 years old. And I've also got a dump valve that needs fixing in a week or 2. I've got to work around, but I'll do a video on that as well. So have a look at those videos. They're part of the playlist. The other thing I like about them is they're really cheap to run. So this is a 950 watt motor, and I've got a little pump on the other side. So when this is running on full, it's using about 1 kilowatt per hour. Now a reverse cycle system uses between 3 and 7 kilowatts per hour, so it's much more expensive to run. The other thing I like, the third thing, is the fact that it's pushing lots and lots of fresh air into the house. And on full, we're pushing the volume of air in the house into the house every 2 minutes. So that's a lot of fresh air going in. Whereas a reverse cycle takes the same air and keeps cycling it. And if you do have a reverse cycle, just crack the window open a little bit to let a little bit of fresh air in just to help refresh. Now let's deal with our top 5 mistakes. Now the first one is starting the system on high. Now you can see there that I started it, and within a few seconds I had a curtain of water, and that's because the sump is full. Normally you turn these off and the sump empties. So if the system's been operating within the last half an hour, turn it on by all means and put it to whatever speed you want. However, if you've just got home, it's hot, the air conditioner hasn't been run for hours, it's going to take time for the water to flood up into the sump, for the pump to prime, for the pump to push water into the top, for the water to go all around all 4 sides, and for the water to actually saturate down the pads. I'd say around 6 to 7 minutes on average. So start it on 1 bar, the lowest possible speed. If you start it any higher than that, all you're doing is taking hot air that's coming through dry pads and it's pushing straight into your house at high speed. It is still going to do that on 1 bar, but at least it'll come in at a small amount, so it won't be too much of a problem. So start it on 1, unless it's been running in the last 15 to 20 minutes, in which case you're probably fine to go because the pads will still be wet. Now the second mistake, Some years ago, I visited friends in Adelaide in their new house that had an evaporative system, and they'd never used one before, and they were complaining it was so hot and it didn't do anything. So it just moves a bit of air around, and that's all it does. And I had a look around the house and every door and window was closed. Now with the reverse cycle system, that's normal because you're taking the air in the room and you're circulating it through the condenser and you're cooling it down and you're conditioning the air by actually removing some of the moisture. And those systems are very good for doing that. These systems are very different. If you're replacing the volume of air in the house every 2 minutes, that air has to go somewhere. So what it does, it'll go into the house, down through the ceiling vent, and the ceiling vent is always as far away from the window as possible. And it'll push across the room and it'll blow that hot air out the window, which you must have open. If you don't open the window, this will do nothing. It'll move air around, but it can't get air into your house. It cannot pressurize your house. It can only put as much air in your house as can escape through little cracks around doors, etc. So open those doors and windows a couple of inches, 4 to 5 centimeters. If you're concerned about safety with a sliding window, you can get a piece of wooden dowel and put it in the track behind the window, and that way you can only open the window a certain amount. And you can get those dowels down at the hardware store. So that's the important thing. Open the windows and also open the doors throughout your house in the areas that you want to cool. Now let's look at number 3, which is related, and that is trying to cool your entire house at once. Now I'm lucky that I've got the right size system the previous owner put on. A lot of people go for the system that is recommended. Generally I would suggest if you're putting one of these in, go for the system recommended and then go up a size. And that way you'll have plenty of cooling. So some of these can struggle occasionally. If you're trying to cool your house, general rule of thumb is close off the rooms you're not using. So office, bathrooms, bedrooms, whatever. And focus on the rooms that you're currently in. Because a room is closed, it will try and put air down the ducts into the ceiling. It will try and do that, but because it becomes a more of a high pressure area, that air won't really push down, and what it'll do instead is to go into the other ducts, so there's low pressure, which means it'll go into the rooms where there's open windows, that it can push the air across the room and out. And that will help you cool the areas you're currently in, and then afterwards you can go and cool the other rooms. That's an important one. On the bigger systems, not so important. Our whole house can be cooled at the same time, but if you've got a smaller system, then that's the way around that problem. Now number 4, again, is to do with the speed of running. I said to you start it up on 1 bar, but don't run it on 1 bar once these pads are wet. After 7 to 10 minutes, turn it to at least 3. 3 is our low, 5 is our medium, and 8 is our high. For you, medium could be 5 to 6. If you're just pumping a little bit of air into the house, all you're doing is you're pumping some air in and the other air is moving out of the way. So the hot, humid air is not necessarily exiting through the window, it could just be moving sideways. So you need enough air moving in to push that air out your windows. So don't run it on low, start it on low and then turn it up to at least 3. Whew, it's getting hot on this roof. Now our last mistake deals with the way these work and how humid it is. So we're taking dry air and we're passing it through a wet pad. It's not a cold wet pad, it's just a wet pad. When the air goes through the wet pad, it picks up moisture, that cools it down, and then it is pushed through the house. That's how they work. Now these are great in dry areas. When it's hot here, we're getting a hot northerly. That air is coming off Central Australia. It's coming down through a really dry area and it turns up here and it is dry. So these work really, really well. But if you're on the coast, if you're in a tropical area, you're not going to find too many of these because they just don't do that good a job. So if it's 85% humidity as it goes through the pad, it's going to be 85-90 as it goes through the pad. It's going to do very, very little, and you're just going to continue to add more humidity into your house. On a really humid day, best bet is turn the system off and run on fans. Now what we'll be doing probably in the next 6 months is putting in a small reverse cycle system just in one room so that next year on the really humid days or the really, really hot days, we can run that reverse cycle system. And you cannot run both systems at once because one is trying to circulate the same air and the other is trying to push in fresh air. So you can run one or the other. But it's a good idea if you've got one of these and you can afford it to run in one room just for the really unusual days where it's humid or really, really hot. But on humid days, these things do very, very little. So don't bother. You're better off just turning the fans on and closing all of the curtains, all the windows, all the doors, and just shut that light out as much as you can. All right, guys, there are my top 5 tips Hopefully that will allow you to get better use out of your system. If you've got any comments, you think I've got something wrong or I've missed something, I do appreciate your comments, because that's how I learn, that's how other people learn. You know, there's some people out there who know these systems certainly better than I do. So please comment, please like the video, and if you like the content, please subscribe. Now I'm going to get off this roof because it is really getting hot up here. So thanks for your time as always, and until next time, stay cool. See ya.